My sons thought it would be funny to leave me stranded in another state. Let her try to get back on her own. They laughed as they drove away. I never went back. 12 years later, they found me married to the governor. The next day, they had 150 unread messages. But it all started when I decided to visit them after so long without seeing each other. Michael, my oldest son, had invited me. "Come on, Mom. It's time for you to see where we live now," he told me over the phone. Naively, I thought they finally wanted me close. My name is Beatrice. I am 67 years old, and for my entire life, I dedicated myself to raising my two sons, Michael and David. I gave them everything, absolutely everything. I sold my house, my jewelry, my furniture, everything for them. When they were little, their father abandoned us, and I was left alone with two children without a penny to my name. I worked from sunup to sundown, so they would never lack for anything. They never went to bed hungry, never lacked clean clothes, never had to ask me for anything twice. I was both mother and father. I worked myself to the bone at 3 different jobs. I cleaned offices in the early morning, sold homemade lunches at noon, and babysat children in the afternoons. The years passed, and my sons grew up. Michael married Sharon, a woman who looked at me with contempt from the very first day. David remained single, but grew more and more distant. They both moved far away, claiming it was for work. The truth is, they wanted to get away from me. They no longer needed the old woman who had given them life. But when Michael called me that day, my heart filled with hope. "Mom, we want you to come visit us. It's been too many years. Sharon wants to get to know you better too." Lies. It was all lies from the beginning. I arrived in that state with a small suitcase and a heart full of excitement. I thought we were finally going to be a close-knit family. Michael picked me up at the airport with a smile that I now know was fake. "How's my dear Mom?" he cooed, hugging me. What a convincing actor he turned out to be. The first few days were normal. I saw their house, we chatted, we cooked together. Sharon was cordial, though cold. David came to visit a couple of times. Everything seemed to be going well, until one night I overheard a conversation I was never supposed to hear. "I can't stand having her here anymore," Sharon was saying to Michael in their bedroom. "Your mother is too meddlesome. She gets into everything, has an opinion on everything. Besides, she has a weird old lady smell." Michael laughed. "Relax, honey. She'll be gone soon. Just put up with her for a few more days. What if she doesn't leave? What if she decides to stay here forever? Your mother is capable of that. She's so clingy, always seeking attention, always needing to be cared for like a child." David was there too. "You're right. Mom has always been like that. Too dependent, too needy. She never learned to stand on her own 2 feet. That's why Dad left. No man can put up with that." My own sons, talking about me as if I were a burden, as if everything I had done for them meant nothing, as if the years of sacrifice were just the whims of a pathetic woman. The next day, Michael told me they had plans. "Mom, we're going out for a bit. We want to show you the city." The 4 of us got in the car. Michael drove, Sharon was in the passenger seat, and David and I were in the back. During the drive, they talked among themselves, laughing at jokes I didn't understand. I felt invisible. We stopped at a gigantic shopping mall. "Come on, Mom, let's walk around a bit," Michael said. We went inside together, strolling through the stores. I was happy, thinking we were finally spending quality time together. How naive I was. "Mom, sit here for a moment while we go to the restroom," they said, pointing to a bench. "We'll be right back." I sat there waiting like an obedient child. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, half an hour passed, and they didn't return. I started to worry. I searched for them all over the mall, asked at the information desk, checked every restroom, every store. Nothing. They had disappeared. Then I ran to the parking lot and confirmed my worst suspicions. The car was gone. They had abandoned me. My own sons had left me stranded like a stray dog in an unfamiliar place, without enough money, without knowing anyone, without even knowing where exactly I was. For 67 years, I had believed I knew my children. That day, I discovered they were perfect strangers. I called Michael in a panic. The phone rang and rang until he finally answered. "Where are you? Why did you leave me here?" I screamed, close to tears. His response broke my heart forever. "Mom, You're a grown woman. It's time you learn to stand on your own 2 feet. We have our own lives. But Michael, I'm your mother. I don't know anyone here. I don't even know how to get home. My voice broke. I was trembling with fear and humiliation. Exactly, he said with a coldness I had never heard from him before. That's your problem. You've always been too dependent. You never learned to be independent. David took the phone. Mom, stop the drama. Find a way to get home. We can't carry you our whole lives. You're an adult. Act like one. Sharon was laughing in the background. Let her try to get back on her own, I heard her say. Let's see if she learns a lesson. Is this a joke? Are you coming to get me? I asked, my voice trembling. Michael sighed as if I were the most annoying person in the world. No, Mom, it's not a joke. You're on your own. Figure it out. Then they hung up. My own sons hung up on me after leaving me in an unknown state. I stood there in the middle of the parking lot, people walking past me, feeling like the loneliest woman in the entire universe. But what they didn't know was that I kept a secret I had hidden for decades. When my husband abandoned us, I wasn't left with absolutely nothing. My maternal grandmother had left me a considerable inheritance that I had kept secret all these years. I never touched it because I wanted my sons to learn the value of hard work and effort. I had properties, investments, bank accounts that my sons never imagined existed. For years, I lived modestly, working hard, pretending we barely had enough to survive, all to teach them values, all so they would become good men. How wrong I was. I also had powerful connections. My grandmother had been a very influential woman in her time. She knew politicians, business leaders, important people. Connections I had maintained over the years without my son's knowledge, because I was always a discreet, humble woman who didn't like to show off. That night, abandoned in the shopping mall, I made the most important decision of my life. I was not going home. I was not going to continue being the submissive, humiliated mother I had been for so many years. I was going to start a new life, a life where my dignity was worth more than the unconditional love I had given to 2 ungrateful sons. I took a taxi to the most elegant hotel in the city. I paid with my credit card, the same card my sons thought I didn't have. The receptionist looked at me strangely. A 67-year-old woman with a small suitcase asking for the presidential suite. Are you sure, ma'am? She asked. Completely sure, I replied with a dignity I didn't know I possessed. That night, in that luxurious suite, I cried for the last time over Michael and David. I cried for the lost years, for the wasted love, for the innocence I had lost forever. The next day, I began my new life. I called Walter, an old friend of my grandmother's who was a real estate broker. Beatrice, what a pleasure to hear from you after so many years, he said. I need to buy a house here. Something elegant, comfortable. I'm going to live here permanently. You're moving? And your sons? Walter knew their story. My sons no longer exist for me, I told him with a firmness that surprised even me. Now, only I exist, and for the first time in my life, I'm going to live for myself. In a week, I had a new house, a beautiful home, with a garden, overlooking a lake, a house my sons could never have dreamed I could own. I hired decorators, gardeners, a housekeeper. For the first time in 67 years, I was going to live like a queen. But it wasn't just about money, it was about dignity. It was about proving to myself that I was worth much more than my sons thought. I started attending social events, clubs, high society gatherings. My grandmother had taught me manners, elegance, refined conversation. It was all there, dormant, waiting for its moment. At one of these gatherings, I met Benjamin, an elegant, educated man, a widower like me. Well, I wasn't a widow, but I felt like one. Benjamin had a brilliant political career. He was respected, admired, powerful, and for some reason he noticed me. Beatrice, I love your conversation, he told me one night. You're an intelligent, cultured, interesting woman. It's not common to find women like that. I couldn't believe a man like him would be interested in a woman like me. But there he was, treating me like a lady, with respect, with admiration. The months passed, and my relationship with Benjamin deepened. He knew nothing of my past, of my sons, of the humiliation I had endured. To him, I was simply Beatrice, an elegant and mysterious woman who had arrived in the city to start anew. And I liked it that way. Benjamin was a candidate for governor. His campaign was in full swing, and I became his constant companion. I appeared at events, at gala dinners, at political meetings. People began to know me as the woman who had captured the heart of the future governor. "Beatrice, you're perfect for me," Benjamin would tell me as we dined at the most exclusive restaurant in the city. "You're elegant, intelligent, you know how to navigate any environment. With you by my side, I feel invincible." I would smile, but inside, a part of me still ached from my son's abandonment. One night, while scrolling through social media, I decided to look up Michael and David. I wanted to know how they were, if they had ever wondered what had become of me. What I found confirmed that I had made the right decision in distancing myself from them forever. Michael had posted photos of a family party. There he was, Sharon, David, all smiling, all happy. The caption read, "Perfect family, no drama, no problems, just peace and love." Sharon had commented, "It feels so good to live without toxicity nearby." David had put a heart on the comment. Toxicity, that's what they called me. I, who had dedicated my entire life to them, was toxicity. I, who had worked until I was exhausted so they would never lack for anything, was the problem. That night I cried for the last time, but not from sadness. I cried from rage, a cold, calculated rage that gave me a strength I had never felt before. Benjamin won the election. On the night of his victory, he proposed to me in front of the entire state, live on television. "Beatrice, my love, you have been my partner in this campaign, and I want you to be my partner in life. Will you marry me?" The crowd roared, journalists snapped photos, cameras recorded every second. "Yes," I said without hesitation. "Yes, I will marry you." And in that moment, I became the future First Lady of the state. The woman who had been abandoned by her own sons in a shopping mall was now going to be the governor's wife. Our wedding was the event of the year. 500 guests, the most beautiful church in the state capital, a pearl-colored wedding dress that cost more than I had earned in years of work. The media covered every detail. "The mysterious Beatrice captivates the governor," the newspaper headlines read. I never mentioned my sons. When journalists asked about my family, I would smile and say, "My family is my husband. He is all I need." Some people found it strange that a woman my age had no children present at her wedding, but I skillfully changed the subject. During our honeymoon, Benjamin told me his plans as governor. "I want to make this state an example for the whole country. I'm going to fight corruption, help families in need, create jobs." His passion for helping people reminded me why I had fallen in love with him. "I want to help you," I told him. "I want to be more than a decorative first lady. I want to work with you. I want to be useful." Benjamin took my hands. "Beatrice, your life experience, your wisdom, your way of connecting with ordinary people, you are exactly what I need. We're going to be an unstoppable team." And we were. During the first years of his administration, I became an active, respected, and beloved First Lady. I visited hospitals, schools, nursing homes. I created programs for single mothers, for abandoned seniors, for children without families. Every program I created was a small act of revenge against my own sons. Because every time I helped a single mother, I thought of how I had struggled alone when they were little. Every time I visited a nursing home and saw abandoned elderly people, I thought of how Michael and David had left me stranded. Every act of kindness toward others was a reminder of the cruelty I had received from my own children. The years passed. 5 years, 7 years, 10 years. My new life was full, successful, respected. Benjamin and I were the most admired political couple in the country. I had found my purpose, my dignity, my worth. I had proven that I was worth so much more than my sons thought. But a part of me always wondered if they would ever find out who I had become. If they would ever discover that the mother they had abandoned had become one of the most powerful women in the state. If they would ever regret treating me like trash. That answer came one morning in the 12th year of my new life. I was having breakfast at the official residence when my assistant brought me the phone. "Ma'am, you have a call. It's urgent. He says he's your son." My heart stopped for a second. After 12 years of silence, Michael was calling me. Beatrice? I heard his trembling voice on the other end of the line. Mom, is that really you? His voice sounded different, older, more tired, more frightened. It's me, I answered with a calm that surprised me. What do you want, Michael? Mom, I can't believe it's you. We've been looking for you for years. Where have you been? Why didn't you tell us you married the governor? You were all over the news, but we didn't recognize you until a few days ago. Why didn't I tell you? I repeated his question with an icy tranquility. Michael, you abandoned me in a shopping mall 12 years ago. You told me to figure it out on my own. You hung up on me when I asked for help. Are you seriously asking me why I didn't tell you about my life? There was a long silence on the other end of the line. I could hear his nervous breathing. Mom, that was a long time ago. We were young, immature. We thought it was for the best. We thought you needed to learn to be independent. The best for everyone? My voice hardened. Leaving a 67-year-old woman stranded in an unknown place was for the best? Making fun of me while you left me like an animal was for the best? Mom, please, don't see it that way. We just wanted you to be stronger. You had always been so dependent on us. We thought a little independence would do you good. Michael's excuses sounded pathetic, even to him. Dependent? I stood up from the breakfast table, feeling the old rage return. I worked 3 jobs to raise you. I sold everything I had so you could go to college. I worked myself to the bone for years so you would never lack for anything. And that's being dependent? Mom, calm down. It's in the past. The important thing is that we've found you now. We want to see you. We want to talk to you. David wants to talk too. Sharon too. We all want to fix things. His voice had turned syrupy, manipulative. The same voice he used as a child when he wanted something from me. Sharon wants to talk to me. The same Sharon who said I smelled weird, that I was too meddlesome. The same one who laughed when you abandoned me. My memory was perfect for recalling every humiliation I had suffered. Mom, she's changed. We've all changed. 12 years have passed. We're different people now. Please, give us a chance. We're your family. Michael was starting to sound desperate. My family? Since when am I your family? 12 years ago, you told me you never wanted to see me again. 12 years ago, you treated me like trash. And now it turns out I'm family because I married the governor. It's not because of that, Mom. I swear it's not. But his voice betrayed him. I knew exactly why they were looking for me now. We've always thought about you. We've always wondered how you were. Liar! The word shot out of my mouth like a bullet. If you had thought about me, you would have looked for me years ago. If you had wondered how I was, you would have tried to contact me. But all you did was celebrate that you no longer had to carry me. Mom, that's not true. Isn't it? I saw the pictures on your social media, Michael. I saw you celebrating your perfect family without drama. I saw Sharon's comment about living without toxicity. I was the toxicity she was talking about, wasn't I? Michael fell silent. I had him trapped. Mom, those pictures, those comments. We didn't know you'd see them. Exactly. You didn't know I'd see them because, to you, I no longer existed. I was dead to you. Please, Mom, let us explain, let us see you. We've been doing very poorly these past few years. We've had a lot of problems. We need you. There it was, the truth. They needed me. They didn't miss me. They didn't love me. They needed me. What kind of problems? I asked, though I already imagined the answer. Financial problems, Mom. David's business went bankrupt. I lost my job 2 years ago. Sharon is unemployed too. We have debts, a lot of debts. The house is in foreclosure. Of course, financial problems. They were looking for me because they needed money, not because they missed me, not because they felt guilty, not because they understood the damage they had done. They were looking for me because they were broke, and they knew I now had power and money. And you think I'm going to help you after everything you did to me? My voice had turned cold as ice. Mom, we're your sons. We're your blood. You can't turn your back on us when we need you most. My blood? The same blood that abandoned me 12 years ago? The same blood that laughed at me when I asked for help? I was shaking with rage, but my voice remained controlled. You broke that bond a long time ago. Mom, please. We're just asking for a chance. One meeting. We want to see you. We want to apologize. We want to fix things. Michael was practically begging now. You know what? Yes, I'll see you. My decision surprised them, and it surprised me. But it won't be how you think. It won't be a tender family reunion where we hug and all is forgotten. It will be very different. Mom, whatever you want, wherever you want, whenever you want, we just want to see you. Michael sounded relieved, thinking he had won. Poor thing, he had no idea what was coming. Very well. I'll see you next Saturday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon at the Continental Hotel in the main ballroom. Come well dressed because it's going to be a public event. My request confused them, but they didn't dare question it. Public, Mom? Yes, Michael, public. I want everyone to see this family reunion. I want everyone to be a witness to what you are about to hear. They couldn't see my smile, but they could feel it in my voice. I hung up the phone and stood in my office at the official residence, looking out the window at the perfectly manicured gardens. It had taken 12 years for this moment to arrive. For 12 years, I had unknowingly waited to confront the sons who had shattered my heart. I called my assistant. Martha, I need you to organize an event for next Saturday. Something elegant, with the press, with important guests. I want it to be perfect. Martha looked at me, puzzled. What kind of event, ma'am? A very special family reunion, I said with a smile that didn't reach my eyes. All week, I prepared meticulously. I chose my most elegant dress, an emerald green one that made me look powerful and distinguished. I had my hair done at the best salon in the city. I hired the best makeup artist. I wanted that when Michael and David saw me, there would be no doubt about the woman I had become. But more important than my appearance was what I had prepared to say to them. For 12 years, I had had time to think, to process, to understand exactly what had happened and what they deserved to hear. I wasn't going to be a wounded mother begging for love. I was going to be a powerful woman teaching them the lesson they deserved. Saturday arrived. The ballroom at the Continental Hotel was packed. There were journalists, government officials, prominent business leaders, socialites. Everyone was curious as to why the First Lady had organized such a mysterious event. A reunion with long-lost family, the official invitation had said. I was seated at the head table, elegant, serene, surrounded by the most important people in the state. At exactly 2 o'clock, I saw Michael and David enter through the main doors. They were dressed in their best suits, but they looked nervous, insecure, completely out of place in that luxurious environment. Sharon was with them, also dressed elegantly, but with an expression of total discomfort. The three of them looked around the room with wide eyes, clearly intimidated by the scale of the event and the importance of the guests. When they saw me sitting at the head table, their faces changed completely. Michael turned pale. David's jaw dropped. Sharon looked like she wanted to disappear. They didn't recognize me. The elegant, powerful woman, surrounded by dignitaries in front of them, bore no resemblance to the humble, submissive mother they had abandoned 12 years ago. I rose slowly from my seat. The entire ballroom fell silent. The journalists readied their cameras. The guests turned their attention toward us. The moment I had been waiting for 12 years had finally arrived. Michael, David, I said in a clear voice that carried to every corner of the room. How lovely to see you after so much time. My smile was perfect, rehearsed, completely controlled. They approached timidly, unsure of what to do, how to react. Mom, Michael murmured, trying to hug me. I took a step back, maintaining my distance. Please, have a seat, I said, gesturing to chairs I had specially prepared for them, separate from the main table, in a position where everyone could see and hear them. Mom, what is all this? David asked in a low voice, obviously uncomfortable with so much attention. This, my dear David, is what you asked for, a family reunion. I simply decided to make it public so everyone can witness this beautiful reconciliation. The journalists started taking pictures. The cameras were rolling. The guests whispered among themselves, trying to understand the dynamic of what was happening. I was in my element, completely in control of the situation. "I want you all to meet my sons," I said, addressing the entire room. Michael and David, two wonderful men who, 12 years ago, made a very interesting decision regarding their mother. My voice had a sweet tone that completely contrasted with the words I was about to say. "Mom, please," Michael whispered, realizing this was not going to be what he expected. "Please what, Michael? Didn't you want to meet with me? Didn't you want us to talk?" "Well, let's talk. Here, in front of everyone." I walked to the microphone I had prepared in the center of the ballroom. "Ladies and gentlemen, I want to tell you a very interesting story. A story about family, about loyalty, about what it truly means to love a mother." The silence in the room was absolute. 12 years ago, I was a 67-year-old woman who had dedicated her entire life to raising her two sons. I worked 3 jobs, sold everything I owned, sacrificed myself completely for them. When they invited me to visit them in this state, I thought we were finally going to be a united family. Michael and David were sinking in their seats, their faces growing redder with shame. Sharon looked like she wanted the planet to swallow her whole. The journalists were taking notes furiously, realizing they were witnessing something extraordinary. "But my dear sons had other plans," I continued, my voice remaining sweet but laced with an irony that cut through the air. "They decided it would be fun to take me to a shopping mall and abandon me there. Let her try to get back on her own," they said, laughing. A murmur of shock swept through the room. The cameras immediately focused on Michael and David, capturing their expressions of absolute horror. Some guests began to whisper indignantly. The story was taking a turn no one had expected. When I called them, asking for help, they told me it was time I learned to stand on my own 2 feet. They hung up on me, leaving me completely alone in an unknown place. My voice remained steady, but everyone could feel the pain behind each word. "And you know what the most beautiful part of it all was?" I continued, my smile widening as I watched Michael and David crumble in their seats. "That abandonment was the best gift they could have ever given me, because it forced me to discover who Beatrice really was, beyond just being the mother of you two." The journalists were writing furiously. The cameras didn't stop rolling. The guests listened with a mixture of fascination and horror. Michael tried to stand up. "Mom, this isn't necessary. We can talk in private." "Sit down, Michael," I ordered with an authority he had never heard in my voice. "You wanted this meeting. Now you're going to listen to everything I have to say." He sat down immediately, like a scolded child. "You see, ladies and gentlemen, what my sons didn't know is that their mother had resources she had kept secret for decades. Properties, investments, important connections all saved while I worked like a servant to teach them the value of effort." My voice had grown stronger, more confident. That night, instead of crying over my abandonment, I made the smartest decision of my life. I stayed here. I bought a beautiful house. I started a new life, a life without ungrateful sons to treat me like trash. The words fell like hammer blows on Michael and David. Sharon was completely pale. She knew exactly where she stood now, in front of a woman who had the power to socially destroy them with a single word. The other guests looked at her with contempt, recognizing her as the cruel daughter-in-law from the stories. "And it was here that I met the love of my life," I said, turning to Benjamin, who smiled at me with pride from the head table. "A man who loves me, respects me, values me. A man who would never abandon me in a shopping mall to laugh at me." "Mom, we love you too," David tried to say with a trembling voice. "Oh, you do? You love me?" My laugh echoed through the ballroom. "Did you love me when you posted pictures of your perfect family without drama? Did you love me when Sharon commented that it was good to live without toxicity nearby?" Sharon sank even deeper into her chair upon hearing her own words repeated publicly. Some guests stared at her with open disgust. Her reputation was crumbling in real time in front of the cameras. "The funny thing is, you found me exactly 12 years later," I continued, pacing the ballroom like a lioness in her territory. "Do you know why 12 years? Because in all that time, you never missed me. You only looked for me when you found out who I had become." "That's not true," Michael murmured, but his voice was so weak that no one believed him. "It's not true? Then explain why you waited until you saw me in the newspapers to look for me. Explain why the first thing you told me was that you had financial problems. The entire room now looked at them with a mixture of disgust and pity. The journalists had found the story of the year. The government officials, who had arrived expecting a normal social event, were now witnesses to the most brutal public shaming they had ever seen. But do you know what the saddest part of all is? My voice softened slightly, but it was heavy with a deep sorrow. That for all these years, despite the pain you caused me, a part of me always hoped you would show up at my door asking for forgiveness. Not asking for money, asking for forgiveness. Michael started to cry. Real tears of shame, guilt, and desperation. Mom, we are sorry. We are so sorry from the bottom of our hearts. We know we were wrong. We know we were cruel. You know you were cruel? I repeated his words. Do you know that now that you see me married to the governor? Now that you see me powerful and respected? Or did you know it 12 years ago when you left me crying in a parking lot? David began to cry too. Mom, we were young, stupid. We didn't understand what we were doing. Please, give us a chance. Their pleas sounded pathetic in the silent ballroom. A chance, I murmured thoughtfully. Like the chance you gave me to walk alone through an unfamiliar mall, desperately looking for you. Like the chance you gave me to spend my first abandoned night crying in a hotel. I approached them slowly. The entire room held its breath. Do you know the exact moment you stopped being my sons? My voice was barely a whisper, but in the absolute silence, everyone could hear me. It was when David told me on the phone to stop the drama. When you told me I was a grown woman and to act like one. In that moment, I understood that to you, I wasn't a mother. I was a burden you had finally freed yourselves from. My son's sobs filled the room. Sharon was crying too, probably more for her current situation than any real regret. The guests looked at them with a mix of pity and contempt. But today, I'm going to give you a gift, I said, returning to the microphone. I'm going to give you exactly what you gave me 12 years ago. I'm going to give you the chance to stand on your own 2 feet, to learn to be adults, to live without depending on me. What do you mean? Michael asked, terror in his voice. I mean, you will not receive a single penny from me. You will solve your financial problems exactly as I solved mine when you abandoned me. Alone. The ballroom erupted in murmurs. The journalists looked at each other, knowing they were witnessing something historic. I returned to the microphone, my voice now stronger than ever. But it doesn't end there, dear sons, because you decided to make this public by looking for me after seeing the news. So, you will receive the consequences publicly. Mom, please, Raphael pleaded, getting to his feet. Don't do this. We're your family. My family? My family is my husband. My family are the people who have respected and loved me for these 12 years. You are simply people who share my blood, but not my heart. I turned directly to the cameras. I want the entire state to know what kind of men Michael and David Miller are. I want them to know that they abandoned their 67-year-old mother in a shopping mall as if she were trash. I want them to know that they are only looking for her now because they need money. David stood up, desperate. This is a public humiliation. You can't do this. Can't I? My laugh was as cold as ice. Of course I can. I am the first lady of this state. I have the power you never imagined I would have. And I am going to use it. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, I continued, I want you to thoroughly investigate the lives of these 2 men. I want you to find out how they've treated other people, how they run their businesses, what they're really like when no one is watching. I'm sure you will find some very interesting stories. The threat was clear. With my position and connections, I could turn their lives into a media hellscape. Michael and David understood this perfectly. Their faces showed pure terror. Mom, this is going too far, Sharon said, finally finding her voice. We came to reconcile with you. I turned to her with a smile that didn't reach my eyes. Ah, Sharon, the woman who said I smelled weird. How do I smell now, dear? Sharon was speechless. The entire room looked at her with contempt. Her humiliation was total and complete. In fact, I continued, I have something special for you too, Sharon. I took out my phone and played a recording. This is a conversation I recorded 12 years ago, the night before they abandoned me. Sharon's voice filled the ballroom. I can't stand having her here anymore. Your mother is too meddlesome. She gets into everything, has an opinion on everything. Besides, she has a weird old lady smell." The room fell into absolute silence. Sharon turned white as a sheet. The cameras captured her expression of total horror. The recording continued with the voices of Michael and David laughing, insulting me, planning my abandonment. "Do you recognize your voices?" I asked when the recording ended. "Do you recognize the horrible things you said about the woman who gave you life?" Michael and David looked like they wanted the earth to swallow them. The guests now looked at them with open disgust. Some stood up and left, not wanting to be associated with people capable of such cruelty. The journalists took photos non-stop, documenting every second of their humiliation. "This recording will be made available to all media outlets," I announced. "I want the entire country to hear exactly what kind of people you are. I want your friends, your neighbors, your acquaintances to know the truth." "This is revenge," David choked out, desperate. "This isn't justice." "Revenge?" I repeated the word, savoring it. "No, my dear David, this is justice. Revenge would have been leaving you on the street 12 years ago when you left me. Revenge would have been using my power to destroy your lives from the moment I married Benjamin. This is simply letting the world know you for who you really are. It's transparency." My smile was sweet, but my eyes were steel. Michael tried one last strategy. "Mom, think about your public image. This doesn't make you look good either. People are going to think you're cruel. It was a gigantic mistake." "My public image?" My laugh echoed through the ballroom. "You think I care about my image after what you did to me?" I stepped up to him until we were face to face. "Michael, for 12 years, I have built an impeccable reputation. I've helped thousands of families. I've created programs for single mothers. I've visited nursing homes for abandoned seniors. The people of this state love me because they know I am a woman who understands suffering. And now, they will love me even more when they know I overcame the abandonment by my own sons to become who I am today." My voice had become powerful, inspiring. Some of the guests began to applaud. They saw me as a woman who had triumphed over adversity, who had turned pain into power. My story didn't make me look cruel, it made me look heroic. "In fact," I continued, "this will be an inspiration for thousands of mothers who have been mistreated by ungrateful children. They will see that you can move forward, that you can succeed, that you can find happiness without depending on people who don't value you." The applause grew louder. The journalists were now writing about the First Lady's incredible story of overcoming adversity. My narrative had completely won. "So don't worry about my image," I told my sons. "Worry about yours. Because from now on, whenever anyone hears your names, they will remember this story. They will remember that you are the men who abandoned their mother and only sought her out when they needed money." Michael and David were destroyed. Their reputations were ruined in a single afternoon. Sharon was crying uncontrollably, knowing her social life was over forever. But my masterpiece was not yet finished. I returned to the microphone to deliver the final blow. "Before you go, I want you to know something else. Something that will forever change the way you see this story." The ballroom fell completely silent, awaiting my next revelation. "For all those years that you believed I was a poor, dependent woman, I had a fortune I inherited from my grandmother. Properties in 3 countries, investments that generate millions a year, bank accounts you never imagined." Their faces turned even paler, if that was possible. "Do you know why I worked like a servant? Why I sold my things? Why I lived modestly?" My smile grew even wider. "To teach you values. So you would learn the meaning of hard work. So you would be decent men." I approached them slowly, "But you interpreted my humility as weakness. You interpreted my love as dependence. You interpreted my sacrifice as pathetic." My voice had become dangerously low, and for that, you lost the opportunity of a lifetime. Michael stood up, trembling. "What do you mean?" "I mean, my dear Michael, that if you had been decent sons, if you had treated me with respect, if you had valued my love, you would now be the heirs to a $150 million fortune." The number echoed through the ballroom like a bomb. The journalists looked at each other in disbelief. My sons stood with their mouths agape, processing the magnitude of what they had just heard. 150 million, I repeated, savoring every word. That was your inheritance. That was the future you lost when you decided to laugh at me and abandon me in a shopping mall. David staggered and had to grab a chair to keep from falling. But don't worry, I continued with false sweetness. That money will not go to waste. I already have perfect plans for it. I took an envelope from my purse and showed it to the room. Here I have the will I signed last week. My entire estate, absolutely all of it, will go to foundations that help single mothers abandoned by their families, to seniors who have been discarded by their children, and to organizations that fight against family abuse. My voice filled with satisfaction. Sharon fainted. She literally fainted and fell from her chair. The paramedics always present at official events rushed to attend to her. Michael and David looked like zombies, processing that they had just lost $150 million because of their cruelty. Every dollar you could have inherited will go to help people who have suffered exactly what I suffered. It will help mothers who have been humiliated by ungrateful sons. It will help seniors who have been abandoned like trash by their own families. The applause was now deafening. The guests were on their feet, giving me a standing ovation. The journalists wrote frantically, knowing they had the most shocking story of the year. My transformation from victim to hero was complete. "Mom, you can't do this," Michael murmured, his voice cracking. "We're your sons. That inheritance belongs to us." His desperation was pathetic, but it no longer caused me any pity or pain. It only confirmed that I had made the right decision. "Belongs to you? Since when does anything of mine belong to you?" My laugh was short and dry. "You renounced any right to me and my estate the day you abandoned me. You chose not to be my sons. Now live with the consequences. Furthermore," I added, addressing the audience, "I want you to know that starting tomorrow, I will be creating the Beatrice Foundation for Abandoned Mothers. It will be the largest foundation in the country dedicated to helping women who have been mistreated by their own children." The applause intensified. The cameras recorded every second. My legacy was being written in real time. And it was a legacy of justice, of dignity, of transforming pain into power to help others. David tried to approach me. "Mom, please, we can change. We can be better sons. Give us another chance." His tears were real, but they came 12 years too late. Another chance? I looked him directly in the eyes. "David, you told me on the phone to stop the drama when I asked for your help. You told me I was a grown woman, and to act like one. Well, here you have a grown woman acting like one. A grown woman who doesn't need sons who only look for her when they need money. A grown woman who has learned to value herself. A grown woman who has decided that her love and her fortune will go to people who truly deserve it." I headed for the ballroom exit, with Benjamin by my side. The guests parted to let me pass, many of them still applauding. The journalists followed with their cameras. My sons remained there, sitting among the ruins of their destroyed lives. "Is that it?" Michael shouted desperately. "Is this how our relationship ends?" I stopped at the door without turning around. "Michael, our relationship ended 12 years ago in a shopping mall. This is just the official funeral. But I want you to know one more thing," I said, turning to them one last time. "I don't regret raising you. I don't regret giving you all my love. I only regret not understanding sooner that love should never be practiced at the expense of one's own dignity. Learn that lesson. Teach it to your children, if you ever have any. Because respect is not optional in a family. It is fundamental." And with those words, I left the ballroom, hand in hand with my husband, leaving behind forever the sons I had lost 12 years ago. The following days were a media whirlwind, unlike any I had ever experienced. The story went viral within hours. Videos from the event circulated on all social media platforms. Newspapers across the country dedicated their front pages to my extraordinary story. The First Lady who turned abandonment into power read the headline of the most prominent paper, but the most beautiful part wasn't the headlines. It was the thousands of letters, messages, and calls that arrived at the official residence. Mothers from all over the country wrote to me, telling me their own stories of ungrateful children, of families who had mistreated them, of abandonment and pain turned into strength. Mrs. Beatrice read a letter that came from Phoenix, Arizona. You have given me the strength to stop begging for love from my children, who treat me like a maid. Thank you for teaching me that I deserve respect. Letters like that arrived by the hundreds every day. The Beatrice Foundation for Abandoned Mothers became a reality in record time. Donations poured in from all over the country and abroad. Successful women, business leaders, politicians, everyone wanted to support the cause. In 3 months, we had opened shelters in 5 different cities. Michael, David, and Sharon completely disappeared from public life. They tried to sell their story to some tabloids, but no one believed them. Their version of me as a cruel and vengeful mother had no credibility after the entire country had heard the recording of them insulting and planning to abandon me. Their financial problems worsened. The companies where they worked fired them to avoid being associated with their public image. Their friends abandoned them. They became social pariahs, exactly as I had been to them for 12 years. But the most painful thing for them wasn't the financial ruin. It was the realization that they had forever lost a mother who had loved them unconditionally. It was understanding that their cruelty had cost them not just $150 million, but the chance to have a real family. Benjamin and I moved to an even more beautiful house on the outskirts of the capital, a place where we could have peace, where we could enjoy our love without the shadows of the past. He never judged me for what I had done. On the contrary, he admired me for the strength I had shown. Beatrice, he told me one night, as we dined in our garden, what you did wasn't revenge, it was justice. It was teaching them a lesson they should have learned a long time ago. His words confirmed that I had found not only love, but a partner who truly understood me. The years passed. The foundation grew to become the most important organization in the country for helping dysfunctional families. We opened emotional rehabilitation centers, financial independence programs for mistreated women, shelters for abandoned seniors. All the pain I had lived through was transformed into hope for thousands of people. On my 70th birthday, Benjamin organized an intimate party just for the 2 of us. "Do you regret anything?" he asked as we toasted with French champagne on our terrace overlooking the lake. The question made me reflect deeply. "I regret that it took me 67 years to discover my own worth," I replied. "I regret confusing love with humiliation for so long. I regret raising sons who believed they could treat me like trash without consequences. But do you regret what you did to them at the hotel?" His question was direct, without judgment. "No," I answered without hesitation. "I don't regret it. They chose their fate when they decided to abandon me. I simply showed them the consequences of their decisions. Sometimes, very rarely, I think of Michael and David. I wonder if they learned their lesson, if they understood the pain they caused me, if they became better people. But these are thoughts that last only a few seconds before I return to my full and happy life. Because I learned something fundamental. You cannot force anyone to love you as you deserve to be loved. You cannot beg for respect. You cannot grovel for dignity. Either they give it to you freely, with genuine love, or it is better to live without those people, no matter who they are. The story of my abandonment and my triumph became a national symbol. Universities study it in family psychology courses. Therapists use it as an example of overcoming adversity. Women cite it as inspiration to leave toxic relationships, even with their own children. But for me, beyond all the symbolism and inspiration it may represent, my story is simply proof that it is never too late to start over. It is never too late to discover your own worth. It is never too late to choose dignity over a love that destroys you. Today, at 79, I am the happiest woman in the world. I have a husband who adores me, a foundation that has changed thousands of lives, an impeccable reputation, and most importantly, an inner peace I never thought I could achieve. And when people ask for my advice for other mothers suffering mistreatment from their children, I always tell them the same thing. Do not confuse motherly love with self-destruction. Loving your children does not mean allowing them to destroy you. Sometimes, the greatest demonstration of love is teaching them that actions have consequences. I do not regret raising Michael and David. I only regret not understanding sooner that kindness should never be practiced at the expense of one's own dignity. That is the lesson I leave to the world, and the lesson with which I forever close the most painful and most transformative chapter of my life. 5 years after that event that changed my life forever, I received a letter I never expected. It arrived on a Tuesday morning, while I was having breakfast on my favorite terrace overlooking the lake. Martha, my assistant, handed it to me with a strange expression on her face. "Ma'am, this letter is from Michael," she said cautiously. "Do you want me to open it first?" I looked at the envelope for several minutes. It had been 5 years since I had heard anything from my sons. 5 years of total silence after the public humiliation they had endured. "No, Martha, I'll open it myself," I said, taking the envelope with steady hands. Inside, the letter was handwritten in Michael's shaky script. I could feel the desperation in every stroke. "Mom," the letter began, "I know I have no right to write to you after everything that happened. I know you probably don't want to hear from us, but I need to tell you something important before it's too late." I continued reading with a morbid curiosity. "David is sick, very sick. The doctors say he has a few months to live. Terminal cancer. Over these past few years, we have reflected a lot on what we did to you, on the pain we caused, on the opportunity we lost to have you as a mother." The letter continued. "I'm not writing to ask for money. I learned that that door is closed forever. I'm writing because David wants to see you one last time. He wants to ask for your forgiveness before he dies. Not the fake apology we gave you at the hotel, but a real, sincere one, from a son who finally understood what he lost." I put the letter down on the table and stared at the lake. I felt a strange mix of emotions, sadness for David's illness, but also a complete absence of the maternal pain I would have expected to feel. 5 years of peace had cauterized those wounds forever. Benjamin came over and read the letter over my shoulder. "What are you going to do?" he asked gently. "I don't know," I answered honestly. A part of me feels I should go see him. Another part knows I owe them nothing. For the next few days, Michael's letter occupied my thoughts constantly, not out of maternal nostalgia, but out of curiosity as to whether they had really learned anything, or if this was another desperate manipulation to soften my heart. I decided to investigate. Using my contacts, I discovered it was true. David did indeed have terminal cancer. I also discovered that for these 5 years, both he and Michael had lived in absolute poverty, working menial jobs, living in rundown apartments, completely socially marginalized. Sharon had left them immediately after the hotel scandal. She had divorced Michael and moved to another country, even changing her name to escape the public humiliation. She had left them alone, exactly as they had left me. A week after receiving the letter, I made a decision that surprised even myself. I was going to see David. Not out of maternal compassion, but to definitively close that chapter of my life. To look the son who had abandoned me in the face and confirm that I had made the right decisions. The hospital where David was staying was public, dilapidated, noisy. What a contrast to the private luxury hospitals where I now received medical care. When I entered his room, I almost didn't recognize him. The robust, arrogant man I remembered had become a skeleton covered in sallow skin. Michael was sitting by the bed, also haggard, aged prematurely by years of stress and poverty. When they saw me enter, they both began to cry immediately. But they weren't tears of joy. They were tears of deep shame. "Mom," David murmured, his voice barely audible. "Thank you for coming. I didn't think you would." I approached his bed but kept a prudent distance. I felt no urge to hold his hand or comfort him, only a clinical curiosity to see what my son had become. "I came because Michael told me you wanted to apologize," I said directly. "So, I'm listening." David closed his eyes, gathering strength to speak. "Mom, for these 5 years, I have thought every day about the mall, about your face when you begged us for help, about how we laughed at your pain. I've thought about all the sacrifices you made for us, how you worked 3 jobs so we could go to school, how you sold your things to pay for our college, and how we repaid you with cruelty and abandonment." His words sounded sincere, but they came too late. "And what do you expect me to do with that reflection?" I asked without emotion. "Forgive you? Pretend the last 5 years didn't happen? Forget that you only sought me out when you needed money?" My voice was calm but firm. Michael approached. "Mom, we don't want your money. We just want your forgiveness. We just want to die knowing that we understood our mistake." I looked at him intently. "Die? Are you sick too, Michael?" Not physically, he replied, but emotionally. I've been dead since the day we publicly humiliated you. We've lived 5 years as social outcasts. No one talks to us, no one hires us, no one wants to be near us. We've experienced the rejection and abandonment that you felt, but multiplied 1,000 times, and we understand that we deserved it. David took my hand with his skeletal fingers. Mom, I'm not asking you to be our mother again. I know we lost that right forever. I'm just asking you to know that we finally understood, that if we could turn back time, we would have loved you as you deserved. I looked at them both for several minutes in silence. 2 broken men, paying the price for their cruelty, finally aware of the damage they had caused. I felt a strange satisfaction. Justice had run its natural course. I forgive you, I said finally. Not because you deserve it, but because I need to close this chapter forever. I forgive you to free myself from you completely. Their faces showed relief and pain at the same time. But let's be clear, I continued, this forgiveness changes nothing. You are still not my sons. I am still not your mother. I am simply choosing not to carry this resentment any longer. I turned toward the door. David, I hope your last days are peaceful. Michael, I hope you learn to live with the consequences of your decisions. And both of you, I hope that if you ever have children, you treat them better than you treated me. I left the hospital feeling an absolute peace. Not sadness, not nostalgia, not regret, just the satisfaction of having definitively closed the circle. That night at home, Benjamin held me as I told him about the visit. Do you regret going? He asked. No, I replied without hesitation. I needed to see them like that, destroyed by their own decisions, to confirm that I chose the right path. Now I know with absolute certainty that my life is perfect without them. David died 3 weeks later. I did not go to the funeral. Michael sent me one last letter informing me, but I didn't open it. Martha filed it away somewhere I have no interest in knowing. That story had ended for me the day I walked out of that hospital. Today, as I write these last lines of my story, I can say with total certainty that I made all the right decisions. I turned abandonment into power, humiliation into dignity, and pain into purpose. And above all, I learned that it's never too late to start over when you have the courage to value yourself. My name is Beatrice. I am 84 years old. I am the founder of the most important family aid organization in the country. I am the wife of the most beloved former governor in the state's history. And I am, finally, a woman who knows her own worth. This is my story. A story of justice, dignity, and second chances. A story I hope inspires other women to never accept less love than they deserve, no matter who it comes from.